Tonight, a digital clock on the city of Everett's homepage is ticking away the days and hours until Wynn Boston Harbor is set to open in mid-2019. But the question on everyone's mind is the casino and Steve Wynn's time almost up? At risk the casino mogul's license, and if he fails to meet certain standards, following last week's Wall Street Journal report detailing decades of sexual misconduct by Wynn and a settlement paid to a woman he allegedly pressured into having sex. The failure to disclose that $7.5 million settlement got the attention of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission at yesterday's public hearing. At the hearing, Chairman Stephen Crosby didn't mince words about how seriously they're taking the investigation.
The stakes are enormous, and many lives are involved, from the lives of the women allegedly abused to the lives of the men and women in Everett who are now working on this project, to the lives of the senior executives and board members of Wynn Resorts. We will get this right, and we will get it right as quickly as we can.
As for Wynn Resorts, they told the Boston Globe yesterday, quote, "We respect the process outlined by the Massachusetts Gaming Commission and will cooperate fully with the investigation." They added, "Our construction is on schedule for a 2019 opening and continues to create more than 4,000 local union trade jobs." Joining me now to discuss the project's prospects going forward is Shirley Young, GBH contributor and Boston Globe business columnist. Hi, Shirley. Nice to see you. Bruce Mull, editor of Commonwealth Magazine, has been following this issue for decades or something like that. Nesta Ramos, columnist at the Boston Globe. Nesta, good to see you. We also reach out to Wynn Boston Harbor President Bob DeSalvio, Everett Mayor Carlo Di Maria to join us tonight. Both declined, as did two who represented Wynn in the application process, former interim Senator Mo Cowan and former Governor Bill Weld. You two were at the hearing, correct?
I was, yeah.
Is there a sense of the room? Is that an unfair question? Can you give me a sense of the five commissioners?
Yeah, I think they took it all very seriously. They didn't want to prejudge what they're going to do, but I thought they were sort of saying we want to see big action out of the Wynn board about what they do about Steve Wynn.
But the one thing that is resolved, Nestor, so far is there was a $7.5 million settlement, and Wynn failed to disclose the settlement. That is a given. That's an established fact, correct?
That was what their chief investigator said yesterday at the hearing, that she had already reached out to the Wynn people, and they confirmed that.
Okay, so you just said they didn't want to prejudge. You already prejudged. What's your prejudgment?
Yeah, I think if we want to be serious about sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, knowing what we know now, even just what they've actually admitted to the commission, that it would be shameful to open a casino run by Steve Wynn, overlooking
But
Boston.
the only thing the commission knows is they failed to disclose a settlement, and Wynn in his statement says this is all about a vicious, vengeful ex-wife. He's not admitting anything.
You read the Wall Street Journal story.
I read every inch of it.
Hand-waving away that reporting with claiming it's a dispute with your ex-wife is not good enough.
Are you a prejudger too there?
Well, I don't think Steve Wynn survives. I think the Wynn Casino will survive here in Everett. I mean, I think there is too much. This Me Too movement is too strong. I think the Wynn board has to act swiftly. I think they get rid of Steve. Listen, he's 76. You know, he has already been there for a long time. It's time to have a transition and move on to the next CEO.
Well, you know, my initial thing was exactly hers. They just get rid of Steve Wynn. But I read your piece in Commonwealth Magazine. Just getting rid of Steve Wynn is not such an easy proposition. Why is that?
Not such an easy, because his name is on the buildings. Even in their business statements where they disclose to investors, they say, if we lose him, that's a big risk for the company. So they just can't get rid of it. And then he's surrounded by all sorts of lieutenants who probably had roles to play if this occurred, probably had roles to play.
That's exactly what I want to talk about. I quote Quentin Tarantino almost every night here. I work him in. What he said about Harvey Weinstein, I knew enough to do more than I did. Did the Gaming Commission know enough to know more than they did, or should they have? And I'll give you an example. While they go out of their way to say, we didn't know what the actual underlying facts were in this manicurist settlement for $7.5 million, where he obviously allegedly coerced this woman to have sex against her will, if we can put up here, a former Wynn employee, Dennis Gomes, I think, in a deposition in the 1990s, is in the Wall Street Journal piece, in a lawsuit, I routinely receive complaints from various department heads regarding Wynn's chronic sexual harassment of female employees. That's a public document, that deposition. At minimum, I mean, I don't know if the board should, the Gaming Commission should have known, but clearly the board of Wynn or some members of the board have to know or at least have constructive knowledge of a fact like this, don't they?
I mean, the quote you put on screen certainly attests to that as far as Wynn goes. As far as whether or not the Gaming Commission should have known, it's a new thing for us in Massachusetts. Certainly, I wish they had. I think we all wish they had discovered this.
This is public. Why would they not? They said their search people from Jersey or wherever say they searched civil records, criminal records. This is part of the civil record.
I mean, the Gaming Commission, their focus was on the financial suitability of Wynn, and really their focus is on organized crime. I don't think at that moment, I don't think they were looking at sexual harassment.
But suitability includes integrity, honesty, good character, and reputation.
But I think a lot of it, especially when you bring casino activities into a state, it was all about organized crime. It was, I mean, that's why the other candidate one of the earlier candidates got bounced out.
Caesars
right?
at Suffolk, we're talking
exactly.
about, right? So, by the way, we asked the governor on the radio the other day about the suitability issue vis-a-vis those words, integrity, honesty, and good character. Said if the facts as alleged in the Wall Street Journal are right, do they meet the suitability criterion? And here's what the governor said.
No, God, no. The allegations are serious. They should be taken seriously. And my hope is that they can move very quickly to reach a conclusion.
And they very quickly declared they'd have a hearing the next day, and they had a hearing. You know, getting back to what Shirley said a minute ago about financial stability, viability, which we did not ask the governor about. The shares have gone down, what, like 20% in a couple of days? That's not a sign of financial viability or stability, is it? It's exactly the opposite of what the Gaming Commission wants to see, yes?
And it's another sign that Steve Wynn is very integral to this company, and he's a driving force. So if he's in danger, investors are going, whoa, wait a minute.
So as difficult as it is to extricate Wynn from this, I'm guessing that all three of you think that the most likely scenario, if the Gaming Commission finds that there are suitability problems, to use their term of art, is they say to Wynn Resorts, you get rid of Wynn or you don't have a license. Is that what you think is likely?
Yeah.
You're nodding. What do you think?
I think they might have to go further.
And revoke the license?
Yeah.
Revoke the license?
Yeah, because in 2016, Wynn's ex-wife, in court documents, raised issues about a legal settlement. Now, we know from the Wall Street Journal what this legal settlement was
The
about.
$7.5 million
right.
for the manicure.
But everybody just talks about it's a private thing. It's all hush-hush. Kim Sinatra, the legal counsel at Wynn, was the one that Elaine Wynn said was the person that said, we're not going to tell anyone about this. We're not going to tell the board about it. Now, we don't know what that settlement was all about officially yet, but, you know, as the Gaming Commission said, if someone is found unfit, unsuitable, that reflects on the broader company. And if more than one is found unsuitable, I think you start to have a ripple effect.
Can you see them revoking this is one of the biggest things in Massachusetts ever. I mean, not only the legislation itself and the effort to repeal on the ballot, which failed, and then obviously I mean, Springfield's a big deal. It's not nearly as big a deal as Everett or Boston Harbor is. Can you see them revoking the license, taking it away from Wynn?
Look, the commission represents the people of this state, and I think that they need to be ready to do that. They need to say to Wynn, and this is well within their rights, get rid of this guy, take his name off the building, or we're revoking the license. And they can't be bluffing. Like, the Wynn people know how to call a bluff. So they have to be ready to do it.
And what's the public's reaction to that? I mean, the public, we should say, supported casinos. They obviously rejected this repeal effort. What's the public reaction if in the middle, I was looking at the picture today, the thing is like moving.
It's three-quarters done.
I mean, they dealt with the toxic cleanup
Yes.
thing. They've spent hundreds of millions of dollars. The building is going up and up. Well, how does the public react if they take that kind of bold action?
I think it's a very difficult decision. I think it would be very hard for the Gaming Commission to take away the license, because the license is not to Steve Wynn. It's to a subsidiary of Wynn. I mean, you have to separate Steve Wynn from the company,
He
Wynn
says
Resorts.
it's very hard to do. And he
and
also says the taint may apply to other
Well, then
people.
you get rid of those people, too. You clean house,
So you
perhaps
have
members
three,
of the board.
like car dealers who are left holding the license out there. I mean, what's left?
And the climate is very different different now. If this had happened a year or 2 years ago, I think things.
What do you mean by that?
Well, there's this whole Me Too that's just taken hold. That
Which
I
was
think,
your point in the
Right, but
in your
it
piece.
a lot of times it involves one person. I mean, not a whole company. I mean, this is very different. I mean, it's not just an individual. And plus, if you
this is his company, sure.
It is his company, but at some point
it's a public company, but it's his company.
right, but he has
You
to
know,
move on at some point.
One last thing about this, if I can. I think Steve Crosby said yesterday, the chair, they're going to continue moving ahead on this thing. We spoke to one of the counselors from Everett, McLaughlin, on the radio today, who's a big advocate of this thing, even though he thinks Wynn has to go. They're doing this at great risk. This huge thing is hanging over their head while they continue to spend, I assume, millions of dollars a day or a week continuing to construct. I mean, that's what's going to happen here?
I mean, frankly, the finances of the Wynn Corporation aren't our concern. Like, aren't my concern as a citizen of Massachusetts. Like, yeah, they're over $1 billion in the hole. You know, don't sexually harass people.
But what is your concern is the hundreds of millions of dollars you as a taxpayer and your family and your neighbors are going to receive if that Wynn casino or some casino goes up in
That's
Everett.
why
Right?
it's a more meaningful statement. That's why it means something to say.
It's a lot of jobs.
Quickly, what's
There
going to
will
happen? We have
still be a
30
casino.
seconds. What's going to happen?
I think Steve Wynn will leave the company.
And they get it. And what
the
remains?
Wynn Resort will open, or some kind
Under
of
their
casino.
name. How about you?
Yes.
I'm more inclined to think that they could lose their license.
How about you?
I think they get rid of Steve Wynn and hopefully change the name.
Fair enough. Goodbye, Shirley. Nice to see you, Bruce. Great to see you. Nestor, same with you. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.